Daniel was a simple man who lived in a quiet town where nothing unusual seemed to happen most days. He worked in a small workshop where he repaired furniture and crafted simple wooden items for neighbors. His life was calm, perhaps even ordinary, but Daniel had a heart that could never walk away from someone in need. He often helped elderly people carry their groceries, played with children who didn't have anyone to spend time with, and volunteered at the local community center whenever his schedule allowed. People who knew him admired him, not because he was wealthy or famous, but because he was always ready to help without expecting anything in return. One late evening after a long day of work, Daniel decided to walk home instead of taking the bus. The air was cool, the streets were mostly empty, and the golden streetlights glowed softly. He enjoyed such walks because they gave him time to think, to breathe, and to notice little things others ignored. The sound of the wind in the trees, the way the moonlight touched the rooftops, the laughter of children playing far away. But that night his peaceful walk was interrupted. As he passed by an alley near the park, he heard something faint. At first he thought it was the sound of cats fighting or maybe the rustle of trash cans. But then he paused, listening more carefully. His heart tightened when he realized it wasn't animals. It was the sound of a child's voice. A cry that carried fear. He stopped in his tracks. The sound was soft but clear, like the cry of someone who felt helpless. Daniel's chest grew heavy. He looked around the quiet street. Few people were nearby, and no one else seemed to notice. He could have kept walking, told himself it wasn't his problem, but Daniel was not built that way. His feet moved toward the sound without hesitation. As he reached the corner of the alley, his eyes adjusted to the dim light. He could now see a little girl no older than 7 or 8 standing against a wall with wide, tear-filled eyes. Her small hands clutched a backpack tightly against her chest, as though it was her only shield. Daniel's heart immediately ached for her. A child should never look so frightened. For a moment he stood still, trying to understand what was happening. He didn't see her parents or any guardian around. She seemed all alone, vulnerable and desperate. He stepped forward slowly, not wanting to alarm her. "Hey," he said gently, keeping his voice soft. "Are you all right?" The girl looked at him, her lips trembling. She didn't answer, but her eyes pleaded silently. Daniel understood that she was too scared to speak. He glanced around again, making sure there wasn't someone else who could help. The street behind him was empty, the windows of nearby buildings closed, and the silence of the night pressed heavily. It was just him and the child. Daniel took another step, lowering himself slightly so he wouldn't appear threatening. "It's okay," he whispered. "You're safe now. I'm here." The girl sniffled but still said nothing. She only clung to her backpack harder, her tiny shoulders shaking. Daniel could see she had been through something that left her terrified. His instincts told him he couldn't waste time. This wasn't a situation where he could walk away. He moved closer until he was standing just a few steps away from her. "Do you want me to help you get home?" he asked. She blinked and nodded faintly, though her fear still lingered. Just as Daniel extended his hand to her, he heard footsteps approaching. His body stiffened. From the shadows, a few figures appeared, blocking the far end of the alley. Daniel instantly understood why the girl had been so frightened. These people were the reason for her tears. For a moment, the air around Daniel felt heavy, but his choice was clear. He stepped in front of the girl, placing himself between her and the approaching figures. He didn't know what would happen next, but one thing was certain. He would not let them near her. The little girl tugged at the back of his shirt, hiding behind him as though he were her shield. Daniel didn't look back at her, but he could feel her trembling. His jaw tightened. He wasn't a fighter, he wasn't someone trained for danger, but he had something stronger than fear. He had the will to protect. The figures muttered among themselves, clearly unhappy to see someone standing in their way. But Daniel didn't move aside. He planted his feet firmly, his eyes steady. The streetlight cast his shadow long across the ground, making him appear larger than he was. Minutes felt like hours as tension filled the air. Daniel knew he might suffer for stepping in, but he didn't care. The girl's safety was worth more than his own comfort. One of the figures stepped closer, but Daniel raised his hand slightly as though to silently say, "That's enough." Something in his unwavering stance made them pause. He wasn't threatening, but he wasn't afraid either. His quiet strength created a barrier stronger than any wall. Finally, perhaps sensing that he wouldn't back down, the figures exchanged glances and slowly drifted away, disappearing into the night. Daniel let out a silent breath he didn't realize he was holding. The alley grew quiet again, and the danger passed like a dark cloud moving away from the moon. He turned quickly to the girl. She was still holding his shirt, her knuckles white from gripping so tightly. He knelt down to her level and spoke gently. "It's all right. They're gone now. You're safe." Tears spilled from her eyes, but this time they were tears of relief. She didn't speak, but she leaned forward and hugged him tightly. Daniel froze for a moment, surprised by the sudden embrace, then slowly wrapped his arms around her, reassuring her with a gentle pat on the back. "Don't worry," he whispered. "I won't let anything happen to you." After a few moments, the girl pulled back slightly. Her voice was small, barely more than a whisper, but it carried gratitude. "Thank you." Daniel smiled softly. "You don't need to thank me. Let's just get you home, all right?" She nodded, wiping her eyes with the back of her hand. Daniel stood and held out his hand to her. This time, she took it. Her tiny fingers curled into his, holding on as though she finally felt safe enough to trust him. Together, they walked out of the alley and back onto the main street. The night no longer seemed so heavy. Daniel knew that this moment, this choice to step in, would change everything in his life. He didn't know how deeply yet, but something inside him already understood. The bond he had just formed with this child would last far beyond this night. And though his body might suffer later from the tension and strain of standing against danger, his heart felt stronger than ever. He had protected innocence, and in doing so he had found a new purpose. Daniel walked with the little girl until they reached a brighter part of the street. Streetlights glowed warmly, and the quietness of the night felt less heavy now. The girl held his hand tightly, still afraid that if she let go, something bad might happen again. Daniel could feel the smallness of her hand in his own, and it reminded him just how fragile she was. He slowed his steps so she would not feel rushed. "What's your name?" he asked softly. The girl hesitated. She looked down at her shoes before answering, her voice trembling a little. "My name is Lily." Daniel smiled warmly. "That's a beautiful name, Lily. I'm Daniel." He squeezed her hand lightly to reassure her. "You don't have to be afraid anymore. I'll make sure you get home safe." Lily gave a tiny nod, though her face still carried traces of fear. It was clear that the events of the evening had shaken her deeply. Daniel wanted nothing more than to take away her worry, even if only a little. As they walked, Daniel noticed that Lily kept glancing around nervously as if expecting those shadows to return. To comfort her, he began to speak gently about ordinary things, the stars above them, the way the moonlight looked on the rooftops, even the smell of fresh bread coming from a nearby bakery. Slowly, his calm voice seemed to ease her heart. Her steps became less hurried and her grip on his hand loosened slightly, though she still held on. When they reached the park near the center of town, Daniel noticed Lily's eyes brighten just a little. "Do you come here often?" he asked. "Yes," she whispered. "I play here with my mom after school sometimes." Daniel smiled. "Then we must be getting close to where you live." Lily nodded. She pointed down a street lined with small houses. "It's this way." As they continued, Daniel felt the ache in his own body. The tension of protecting her earlier had left him sore, though he tried not to show it. He didn't want Lily to worry about him. His only focus was getting her safely back to her mother. Finally, they reached a small house with light glowing warmly through the windows. Lily's face lit up the moment she saw it. "That's my home," she exclaimed, her voice filled with relief. She let go of Daniel's hand and ran toward the door, knocking quickly. Within seconds, the door opened, and a woman stepped out. She had kind eyes, though they were filled with panic at the sight of her daughter. "Lily!" she cried, rushing forward to embrace her. Daniel stopped a few steps back, not wanting to intrude on their reunion. He watched as Lily buried her face into her mother's shoulder, tears of relief spilling down her cheeks. The woman held her tightly, whispering words of comfort. After a moment, the woman looked up and saw Daniel standing there. She seemed to piece together what had happened, her eyes full of gratitude and questions at the same time. You helped her?" she asked softly, her voice trembling. Daniel nodded humbly. "I just found her. She was frightened, and I stayed with her until she got home." The woman's eyes filled with tears. "I don't even know how to thank you. If anything had happened to her." Her voice broke and she pulled Lily even closer. Daniel raised his hands gently. "Please, you don't need to thank me. I just did what anyone should do." But the truth was, not everyone would have done what Daniel did. Many people might have walked away, ignoring the sound of a child in distress. The woman seemed to understand. That. She stepped forward, still holding Lily with one arm, and said firmly, "No. You did more than most people would. You stood with her when she needed someone. That means everything to me." Daniel gave a small smile. He could see the deep love the woman had for her daughter. It reminded him of the kind of strength that parents carried, the kind that kept them going no matter how hard life became. Lily lifted her face from her mother's shoulder and pointed at Daniel. "Mama, he saved me." Her small voice was filled with innocence but also complete truth. Her mother looked back at Daniel, her eyes shimmering. "Then he's not just a stranger. He's the reason I have my daughter safe in my arms right now. Srenny." Warmth in her words touched Daniel deeply, though he didn't know how to respond. He felt a little embarrassed by the praise, but also quietly thankful that Lily's mother understood. The woman invited him inside for a moment so she could properly thank him. At first, Daniel hesitated. He didn't want to intrude on their family time, but she insisted. "Please, just for a few minutes. I can't let you walk away after what you've done." Reluctantly, Daniel agreed. He followed them inside the cozy little house. The living room smelled faintly of lavender, and soft light filled the space. Lily sat on the couch, still holding her backpack tightly, while her mother brought a glass of water for Daniel. "My name is Elena," she said as she placed the glass on the table. "I don't know what we would have done without you tonight. Thank you for being there when my daughter needed someone most." Daniel took the water and nodded politely. "I'm just glad I was nearby. I couldn't ignore her cries." Elena sat across from him, her eyes still studying him with a mix of relief and admiration. "Most people would have kept walking, but you didn't. That shows what kind of person you are." Daniel felt a little shy under her gaze, but he tried to smile. Anyone with a heart would have done the same. As they talked, Lily slowly began to relax. She even smiled a little, leaning against her mother's side. Every so often her eyes drifted to Daniel as though she wanted to make sure he was still there. In her young mind, he had become a figure of safety, a person she could trust. When the clock struck later into the evening, Daniel stood up to leave. "I should get going. I don't want to take more of your time." But before he could walk to the door, Elena stopped him. Her voice was gentle but filled with determination. "Wait, please. I want you to know that you'll always be welcome. Here, you're part of the reason my daughter is safe. You've given me a gift I can't repay." Daniel nodded quietly, touched by her words. "Thank you. That means a lot." As he stepped outside, Lily called after him. "Bye, Daniel." Her small voice carried through the night air filled with innocent affection. Daniel turned back and waved, smiling. "Good night, Lily." He walked home under the soft glow of the moon, his body sore but his heart strangely full. He didn't know it yet, but this night was the beginning of something far greater than he imagined. He had protected a child, but in doing so, he had unknowingly stepped into the lives of two people who would soon change his own life forever. The days turned into weeks and Daniel became more and more a part of Elena and Lily's daily life. What began as occasional visits soon turned into regular moments together. Sometimes he would walk Lily home from school if Elena was busy. Other times he would stop by in the evening to share dinner with them. Slowly, without anyone planning it, Daniel had become like a piece of their small family puzzle that had been missing all along. One Saturday morning, Daniel woke up earlier than usual. He had promised Lily that he would take her to the park. When he reached their home, Lily opened the door before he could even knock. Her face was full of excitement and she already had her little shoes on. "Daniel, you're here," she exclaimed, hugging him. Elena appeared behind her, smiling warmly. "She's been up since sunrise waiting for you." Daniel laughed gently. "Well then, I'm glad I came early." The three of them walked together to the park. The sun was bright. The trees swayed softly, and the air was filled with the laughter of other children playing. Lily ran toward the swings, calling for Daniel to push her. Daniel followed, giving her gentle pushes as she squealed with joy. Elena sat nearby on a bench, watching the two of them with a look of quiet happiness. For her, it was more than just a playful moment. It was a glimpse of something she hadn't dared to dream about for years. A man she could trust who cared for her daughter as though she were his own. Every time Lily's laughter rang through the park, Elena's heart swelled with gratitude. Later, the three of them shared ice cream from a small vendor. Lily managed to get chocolate on her cheeks, making Daniel laugh as he handed her a napkin. Elena joined in the laughter, feeling lighter than she had in a long time. As they walked home, Lily walked between them, holding each of their hands. She looked up at Daniel with her innocent eyes and said, "Daniel, you're like my dad." The words caught Daniel by surprise. He glanced at Elena, who froze for a moment. Her expression softened as she looked at Lily, then at Daniel. Daniel's chest tightened, but not in a painful way. Instead, it was a feeling of responsibility, warmth, and belonging all at once. He bent down slightly and said softly, "If that makes you happy, then I'll be here for you just like one." Lily smiled brightly, and Elena's eyes glistened. That evening, after Lily had gone to bed, Elena and Daniel sat together in the living room. The room was quiet, except for the ticking of the clock. Elena finally spoke, her voice gentle but serious. "She called you her dad today," she said softly. Daniel nodded. I wasn't sure how to respond. I didn't want to say the wrong thing. Elena looked at him for a long moment before replying, "You didn't say the wrong thing. In fact, you said exactly what she needed to hear." Her words carried more meaning than she let on. Daniel could feel it, the unspoken emotions lying beneath. As the weeks went on, Daniel and Elena's bond grew deeper. They shared conversations about their lives, her struggles as a single mother, his quiet, simple existence, and the dreams they both carried silently. Elena admitted how lonely she had felt raising Lily alone, always worried about giving her daughter enough love and support. Daniel listened with understanding, his presence itself a comfort. One rainy afternoon, when thunder rumbled in the distance, Lily grew frightened. She ran to Daniel, clinging to him. He held her close, whispering softly until her breathing calmed. Elena watched this with tears in her eyes. In that moment, she knew without doubt that Daniel was not just a guest in their lives. He had become part of their family. That night, after Lily was asleep, Elena turned to Daniel with a look of resolve. "I don't know how else to say this," she whispered, "but I don't want you to ever feel like you're just visiting us. You've given us so much comfort and joy. I want you to stay, to be with us, not just as a friend, but as family." Daniel felt his heart race. For so long, he had lived quietly, never imagining such a future. But now, looking at Elena's hopeful eyes and remembering Lily's laughter, he realized this was exactly where he belonged. He nodded slowly, his voice steady but full of emotion. "I'd like that, more than anything." Elena smiled, relief and happiness washing over her face. For the first time in years, she allowed herself to hope for love again. And for Daniel, the man who had once walked home alone under the quiet moonlight, life no longer felt lonely. He had found a place where he was needed, wanted, and loved. Life with Elena and Lily soon became Daniel's new reality, and he embraced it with an open heart. He moved carefully, never wanting to rush their bond, but everything seemed to fall into place naturally. Every morning, he walked Lily to school, holding her small hand as she chattered about her lessons and friends. In the evenings, he often cooked dinner with Elena, sharing laughter as they experimented with new recipes. On weekends, the three of them would go on small adventures, picnics, in the park, trips to the market, or simply long walks where they talked about everything and nothing. Lily flourished in this new rhythm. Her laughter grew brighter, her fears faded, and she often declared proudly to her friends, "Daniel is my hero." Those words filled Daniel with pride but also humility. He didn't see himself as a hero. He only saw himself as a man who had made a choice to protect a child one night. Yet that choice had changed everything. Elena, too, changed. Her days no longer felt heavy with loneliness. With Daniel beside her, she found comfort, joy, and a sense of partnership she had longed for. She admired his kindness, his patience, and his unwavering devotion, not just to Lily, but to her as well. Slowly, admiration turned into love. A love she could no longer hide. One evening, as they sat on the porch watching Lily chase fireflies in the yard, Elena turned to Daniel. "Do you ever wonder," she asked softly, "how different life would have been if you hadn't heard her that night?" Daniel looked at her thoughtfully. "All the time. But I'm glad I did. Because it led me here. To both of you." Their eyes met, and in that quiet moment, Elena felt her heart speak the words she had been holding back. "Daniel, I love you." The words hung in the air, simple, yet powerful. Daniel's breath caught, but his reply came with certainty. "I love you too, Elena." From that night forward, their bond deepened into something unbreakable. They were no longer just three people brought together by chance. They were a family built by choice, by love, and by the courage of one man who refused to turn away from a child in need. Months later, as seasons changed, Daniel stood with Elena and Lily in the very park where they had first laughed together. Lily held both their hands, smiling brighter than ever. To her, the world felt safe and full of love. To Elena, the weight of loneliness was gone, replaced by partnership and trust. And to Daniel, the man who once walked home alone, life had given him more than he ever dreamed, a family who wanted him forever. Their story was not just about a night of fear, but about what grew from it. It was about how courage led to love, and how one act of selflessness blossomed into a bond that time itself could not break. And so, the man who once suffered for a child's safety found his reward in something greater, a lifetime of love, belonging, and the promise of forever. The next morning, Daniel woke up later than usual. His body ached from the tension of the night before, but his mind was restless. As he sat at the edge of his bed, he kept replaying the sight of Lily's frightened eyes and the way she clung to him. He also remembered her mother, Elena, whose gratitude shone so deeply in her expression. He got ready for the day, though his thoughts kept drifting back to them. He wondered if Lily had slept well after such a frightening evening. He also wondered if Elena was still worried, even though her daughter was safe. For reasons he couldn't quite explain, he found himself caring about them more than he expected. Daniel headed to his workshop, where the familiar smell of wood and varnish filled the air. He tried to lose himself in his work, sanding a chair, fixing a table leg, but every time he paused, his mind wandered back. He thought of Lily's small voice saying, "Mama, he saved me." Those words had planted something in his heart that wouldn't go away. Around midday, while he was polishing a wooden frame, the bell at the shop door rang. Daniel looked up and froze in surprise. Standing there was Elena, holding Lily's hand. "Good afternoon," Elena said with a small smile. Daniel quickly set the frame aside and wiped his hands. "Elena, Lily, I didn't expect to see you here. Lily grinned shyly. Mama wanted to come say thank you again. Elena nodded. I couldn't rest until I properly thanked you. Last night I was too shaken to say everything I wanted. You deserve more than just a few words. Daniel felt embarrassed but touched. You don't have to thank me anymore. I was just at the right place at the right time. But Elena shook, her head firmly. No, it wasn't just that. You chose to help. You stood with her. That choice matters, and I will never forget it. Her sincerity was overwhelming. Daniel could see how much it meant to her. He noticed too how her eyes softened whenever she looked at him, as though she saw not just the man who saved her daughter, but also someone she trusted instantly. He motioned for them to sit, offering the little bench near his work table. Lily climbed onto it happily, swinging her legs while Elena sat beside her. For a moment the workshop felt warmer, brighter, just because they were there. Daniel poured some water for them and asked, "How are you both feeling today?" Lily answered first. "Better. Mama made pancakes this morning." Elena smiled at her daughter's simple joy. "She's still a little shaken, but she slept peacefully knowing you were nearby." Daniel tilted his head. "Nearby?" Elena nodded, her cheeks coloring slightly. She kept saying, "Daniel will protect me." It gave her comfort. Hearing those words filled Daniel's chest with a strange warmth. He didn't know what to say, so he simply smiled at Lily. "I'm glad I could make you feel safe." For the next half hour they talked casually. Elena asked about his work, and Daniel showed Lily some small wooden toys he had made. Her eyes sparkled with excitement as she held a little carved horse. "Did you make this?" she asked. "Yes," Daniel said. "Would you like to keep it?" Her face lit up and she hugged the toy tightly. "Really? Thank you." Elena watched the exchange with quiet admiration. She saw the way Daniel spoke gently to her daughter, the way he gave without expecting anything back. It stirred something inside her, something she hadn't felt in a long time. After a while, Elena stood. "We should go. I don't want to keep you from your work. But Daniel, I hope this won't be the last time we see you." Daniel nodded. "Of course, you're always welcome here." As they left, Lily waved cheerfully. "Bye, Daniel." Daniel waved back, feeling lighter than he had in months. Over the following days, their paths crossed more often. Sometimes Elena would stop by the workshop after picking Lily up from school. Other times, Daniel would see them at the park, where Lily would run up to him with excitement. Each meeting felt natural, as though life itself was weaving their stories together. One evening, Elena invited Daniel to dinner. At first he hesitated. He didn't want to impose, but Elena's warm insistence left him with no excuse. When he arrived at their home, the smell of cooking filled the air, and Lily ran to greet him at the door. "Daniel's here," she announced with glee. Elena laughed softly. "Come in. Please make yourself comfortable." They shared a simple but heartfelt meal. Lily talked endlessly about school, about her favorite stories, and about the toy horse Daniel had given her. Elena listened with affection, occasionally meeting Daniel's eyes across the table. In those quiet glances, something unspoken passed between them, a recognition of connection, trust, and gratitude that went beyond words. After dinner, while Lily played with her toys in the living room, Elena poured tea for Daniel. "I don't know how to explain this," she began softly, "but ever since that night it feels like you've become part of our lives." Daniel looked at her, unsure how to respond. "I never wanted anything in return," he said. "I just wanted Lily to be safe." "I know," Elena said quickly. "That's what makes it even more meaningful. You gave without asking, and it makes me feel like I've known you much longer than just a few days." Her words lingered in the air, warm and gentle. Daniel felt his heart stir. He had always lived a quiet, simple life, but now, sitting across from Elena, He felt as though his world had opened to something new, something he hadn't even known. He was missing. The bond between them grew stronger with each passing day. Lily began calling Daniel her hero whenever she saw him, and sometimes she even asked if he could join them at the park or read her a story. Daniel always agreed, and Elena watched these moments with quiet joy. But Elena also felt something deeper, blossoming in her own heart. Every time she saw Daniel's kindness, every time she noticed his patience with Lily, her admiration grew into something she could no longer deny. She had lived through struggles and loneliness, raising her daughter on her own, but with Daniel around, she felt a new sense of peace. One evening, as they all sat together in the living room, Lily dozed off on the couch, clutching her toy horse. Elena covered her gently with a blanket, then turned to Daniel. Her eyes were soft yet serious. "I want to tell you something," she said. Daniel waited, his heart beating a little faster. "You didn't just protect my daughter that night," Elena continued. "You gave me hope again. Hope that there are still people in this world who care without asking for anything. Hope that maybe we don't have to go through life alone." Her words touched Daniel deeply. He felt something shift inside him, a recognition that he too didn't want to go through life alone anymore. For a long moment, they sat in silence, the quiet hum of the evening surrounding them. Then Daniel spoke softly. "I don't know what the future holds, but I'd like to be here, for both of you." Elena's eyes glistened with unshed tears, but her smile was radiant. "Then maybe the future is already starting,"